Today is the day the NFL season starts, at least if you are watching this the day it releases, and if you're watching it after the fact, then congratulations, the NFL season's already started. That's awesome! And so with the NFL season upon us, I wanted to go through and make a power ranking of all 32 NFL teams coming into the 2024 season. But before we get into the video, I wanted to take a second to ask you to please subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications. Really helps us out. If you're a fan of the NFL, you'll love this channel. It releases multiple NFL-related videos every Thursday and Saturday all year long. Now, let's get back to the video. So we're going to start right here with our bottom 12 teams. It would take a long time to go through and individually analyze all 32 teams, so we're primarily going to glaze over the first few teams. And so these are our bottom 12 teams. As you can see here, I have the New England Patriots as the lowest rated team. I mean, they just don't have anything going for them, except for the fact that, they've won 6 Super Bowls this century, so they've done all right. They can have a few years of pain. Any Patriots fans who think they've had enough pain, they don't know shit. I'm a Lions fan. I know pain. They don't know pain. I think the other teams that some people may be slightly surprised to see here this low is the Minnesota Vikings, who I would like to put higher. I actually really like the Vikings as a team and think they're moving in the right direction. I really like their draft. But with J.J. McCarthy being injured and Sam Darnold being their quarterback, this is just a team I can't trust to be able to throw the ball that effectively. And given you already have TJ Hawkinson missing with injury, and their pass catchers really are the best part of this team, if you can't get them the ball, then they're not going to be very good. And so it's tough to put the Vikings any higher. And the other team that some people might question here is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a team that literally made the playoffs last year, won a playoff game, didn't really lose anybody, but is ranked 21st. And the reason for that is that the NFC South is the worst division in football, and so while the Buccaneers should still compete potentially for that divisional crown, I don't think they're a very good team. They just happened to win a really weak division and go against an Eagles team that was tripping over their own feet the entire second half of the season. Next up, we have our teams ranked 11 to 20. These are the middle of the pack teams. I think every single one of these teams should be competing for a playoff spot in 2024, and a number of them were actually going to be favored to make the playoffs. Some teams like the Eagles and Colts, I think, can probably win their divisions, even though they're not ranked in the top 10. But it just comes down to how schedules look and how good teams are. I think all these teams are solid, but they just miss out on that top 10. And so they're getting the honorable mention here. Moving into our top 10, we're going to start at number 10 with the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins were a team that, much like in previous seasons, had some really good and some really bad. If you remember, at the start of the 2023 season, this team by many was considered to be far and away the best in the NFL because they beat up on the Denver Broncos, which is apparently like a feat to do. I don't know. That didn't seem that crazy good to me, but that's how we all thought about it, and we all thought the Dolphins were going to be Super Bowl contenders. Then as the season went on, they did what they do every year. When the weather gets colder, the Dolphins tend to shrink away. And that's going to be the narrative about the Dolphins pretty much moving forward until they can figure out a way to not shrink in the cold. We've seen too many times the Dolphins have really good starts to their season, have really good home splits, but they're just not that good on the road. And when they have to go to cold weather outdoor stadiums like Buffalo, like Kansas City, the Dolphins just can't cut it anymore. And if that's going to be the story of the Dolphins, unless this team can get the number 1 seed, they're probably never going to win the AFC and make it to the Super Bowl. I do think the Dolphins are still a very talented team, which is why I have them at number 10 on this list. But I do think that narrative is accurate. There is no evidence that Tua can play in cold weather based on what he's done in the NFL thus far, and the fact that he played at Alabama where he got some pretty warm weather pretty much all season long in the SEC. And beyond that, with a lot of their other star players aging, like Jalen Ramsey, Bradley Chubb, and Tyreek Hill, all of whom are reaching age caps where they might start to fall off, I don't think this team is going to be able to win in their current iteration. But they should still be quite competitive, which is why they're number 10 on this list. At number 9, I have the Houston Texans, a team that a lot of people are ready to crown as one of the AFC's elite. I am not one of those people. A lot of people think I am selling the Texans short, and maybe I am. I think I've been fairly complimentary of the team. I think they're moving in the right direction, but this is a team that their big additions were Joe Mixon, Stephon Diggs, and Danielle Hunter. And outside of Danielle Hunter, I'm not sold on those additions. And when they added Danielle Hunter, they also lost Jonathan Greenard, so that was a little bit of a moot move. I do think Hunter is an improvement, but he's also older. I think the big thing people expect from the Texans is that CJ Stroud will take a massive sophomore leap. But CJ Stroud already had one of the best rookie seasons we've ever seen from a quarterback in the NFL. It's going to be very tough for him to have a significant leap forward given the status he already put himself in amongst the NFL's elite quarterbacks. And so, because I don't know how much of a step up CJ Stroud really can have, and the team hasn't added a lot of assets other than some aging veterans, especially given they didn't have a first-round pick in 2024, I don't think the Texans are going to take the same step up as a lot of other people are projecting. And so I have them at 9th on the power rankings, though I acknowledge maybe I'm wrong, and maybe they are a top 6, top 5 team like a lot of people expect them to be. At number 8, I have the Dallas Cowboys, and a lot of people like to laugh at the Cowboys, and rightfully so, given they haven't made an NFC championship in nearly 30 years, which is absolutely insane to think about. But we got to remember that the Cowboys did finish 12-5 in 2023 and did make the playoffs. Yes, they ended up losing to the Green Bay Packers in a pretty big drubbing in the playoffs, but the Cowboys are still a pretty good team. They returned a decent portion of this team. And yes, they didn't add anyone massive to the team, but returning Trayvon Diggs from injury is going to be a significant addition for this team. And they have a number of other really good offensive players on expiring deals. CeeDee Lamb just signed a big money contract, but Dak Prescott is in the last year of his contract. He's going to want to ball out to get paid this offseason. As well, Micah Parsons looking for a contract. He's going to be looking to put up a big year. And Mike McCarthy is not going to let games get away if he can help it because he's looking for a contract. The entire team is going to be hungry this year. I think they're still very talented, and they're always going to cowboy, much like they do all the time, and lose to some atrocious teams. But that doesn't mean they're not a top 10 team, which is why I have them at 8. At number 7, I have the Buffalo Bills, and I will fully acknowledge I'm a lot higher on the Buffalo Bills than a lot of other people. They did jettison a lot of guys this offseason, including Gabe Davis, Stephon Diggs, Jordan Poyer, Mitch Morse, Tre'Davious White. I could go on, but it's safe to say the Bills have lost a lot of assets compared to what their team was in 2023. Additionally, Matt Milano, who was the one big returning player everyone was expecting to come back for the Bills, got himself injured in preseason, and so they really are very thin across the board. That being said, they still have Josh Allen, and I find it tough to believe that a team that still has Josh Allen cannot be a very effective team in the NFL. This is a quarterback-dominated league. Basically, every team in the NFL, if you have a good quarterback, can compete in any game. And I think that's going to be the Buffalo Bills' MO this season. If you watched my video released just a couple of days ago, I talked about how I thought Josh Allen would win MVP in the 2024 season. And as such, I also have the Bills at 7th on my power rankings. I still think they're one of the AFC's elite teams and will be competing with a lot of the other best of the best in the AFC for trying to make it to the Super Bowl. There are still a lot of other good AFC teams. The AFC is stacked, and so the Bills still have an uphill battle to make it that far, but they still have a chance in spite all the players they jettisoned, and so they're number 7. At number 6, and I hate to say it, you got the Green Bay Packers. As a Lions fan, I can't stand the fact that Green Bay got rid of Aaron Rodgers, and within a year, they're back to number 6 on the preseason power rankings. They can't keep getting away with this! Oh, it's so frustrating. But the Green Bay Packers are really good. And I can't deny that they are really good. Jordan Love looks like a franchise quarterback for this team. They added Josh Jacobs at running back, who I think is a fantastic running back and will be extra effective, especially given after some of the injured guys come back, he won't have as heavy a workload as he had to have in Vegas. Beyond that, their receiving core is exceptionally young. Last year, nobody on the receiving core was further along than their sophomore season. So this year, they're all still going to be on their rookie scale deals. Tight ends, also young. Offensive line is decent. And there's a lot of promising pieces on the defense. This team has very few weaknesses. Made it to the divisional round last year and nearly beat the 49ers, who went all the way to the Super Bowl. This team is good. They are competitive. If you take the second half of the season when Jordan Love came alive in 2023, they were one of the scariest teams in the NFL, and I expect them to be competing for the NFC title and for the divisional title in the NFC North. At number 5, we have a team that didn't even make the playoffs last year, the Cincinnati Bengals. I have seen a ton of power rankings out there, and a bunch of them don't even have the Bengals in the top 10, which is just shocking to me. I feel like we all forgot about how good Joe Burrow is. Like, I've been doing fantasy drafts all this past weekend, and in every league, CJ Stroud is going way higher than Joe Burrow. And I've been asking myself, what's the difference between Stroud and Burrow? Burrow is one of the best pure pocket passers in the NFL, and CJ Stroud is also one of the best pure pocket passers in the NFL. I don't know why people forget how good Joe Burrow is, but he is that guy. I mean, think about what we were talking about him just a year ago when he was coming into the 2023 season. We were talking about him as the second best quarterback in the NFL behind Patrick Mahomes. I personally had him third because I had Allen above him, but I still think Joe Burrow is exceptionally elite as a quarterback. I put him ahead of CJ Stroud still, both in terms of actual productivity and fantasy. And if he is healthy for this season, a Bengals team that went 9-8, where Burrow was healthy and productive in very few of their games, can absolutely be one of the best teams in the NFL in 2024. They have a solid defense. They have fantastic receiving options. And again, I just trust Joe Burrow. I think he's a great quarterback. And so I'm putting them at number 5 here. It might be higher than a lot of people out there, but come on. We know what this team can be, and so they have to be number 5 if you think Joe Burrow is going to come back anywhere close to what he was in 2022, 2021, and previously. And at number 4, you have my Detroit Lions, and wow, does it feel weird to put the Detroit Lions at 4th on a power ranking and not be doing this for the memes? I mean, really. My entire life, the Detroit Lions have not been a top 10 power ranked team. It's really nice to see them at 4th and to be able to say this team has Super Bowl aspirations and other people to say, yeah, they do. It's really nice. I'm sorry. I just got to bask in the glow for a minute because I'm not used to this. But the Lions are a very good team. And of the teams remaining to place on this power ranking, I think the Lions improved the most over the offseason. The biggest issue that the Detroit Lions had in 2023 was their pass defense. Their pass defense and their corners were pretty bad in 2023 and, 2022, 2021, 2020. They have never been good, their corners, since they gave Darius Slay to the Philadelphia Eagles a few years ago. But the Detroit Lions, they want to play a lot of man defense, so they made a trade with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for Carlton Davis, one of the best man coverage corners who played in a primarily zone coverage scheme, and so there was value to be had there. They drafted Terrion Arnold and Ennis Rakestraw in the first and second rounds of the NFL draft in 2024, both of whom can be man coverage specialists, and they went out and signed a guy like Amik Robertson from the Raiders, who's a very good man coverage slot cornerback. The Lions completely overhauled their cornerback room in one season, having their top 4 corners all be brand new to this team while keeping everybody else in-house. The Lions spent a ton of money this offseason paying Jared Goff, paying Amon-Ra St. Brown, paying Penei Sewell, and then bringing those guys in and making sure this team is ripe to compete in 2024. The biggest question mark around this team is, do those additions pay off? Because if I think they do, the Lions have one of the best rushing attacks in the league, one of the best passing attacks in the league, and one of the best rushing defenses in the league. If you add an above average pass defense, all of a sudden this team is competing with everybody in the NFL week in and week out. Number 3 on our list, you have the Baltimore Ravens, who finished with the best record in the regular season in the 2023 season, but weren't able to get over the hump, losing in the conference championship to Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, which, I mean, frankly, pretty much every AFC elite team has had to deal with at some point. Patrick Mahomes has literally never lost prior to overtime of the AFC championship game in his career, which is just insane to think about. The only 2 years he didn't make the Super Bowl, he still went to overtime of the AFC championship. I mean, we all know the Chiefs are coming up at some point on this list. I'm not going to try to hide it. You've seen all the numbers. But still, the Ravens are an elite team in the AFC and absolutely are going to be looking to compete with the Kansas City Chiefs and all the rest of the AFC's elite come the playoffs. Lamar Jackson took a massive step forward in 2023. He finally learned to be a quarterback that uses their legs not exclusively to scramble and rush for yards, but to buy time with the ball and make good throws. That was a massive difference I saw in Lamar Jackson's game in 2023. And I've always said, rush-first quarterbacks cannot win a Super Bowl. But that's not who Lamar Jackson is anymore, and that makes the Ravens one of the most scary teams in the NFL. Add on to that how good this defense was, in spite the fact that for the most part, their defense was just made up of a bunch of dudes. Like, they signed Jadeveon Clowney barely before the season start, and he was massive for that defense. Justin Madubuike had a career year and got paid because of it. And the defense just looks to be one of those units that can plug and play basically anyone and still be effective, which is why the Ravens defensive coordinator left for a head coaching job in 2024. All told, I think the Ravens are very, very good in 2024, every bit as good as they were last year. And it's going to come down to how effective can the Ravens be with the receiving options they have, which are hit or miss with guys like Bateman and Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely. And how effective is Derrick Henry still? Can he be that massive bruiser who makes it so teams have to load the box against Lamar, who can then just air it out with his arm? Or is Derrick Henry over the hill and just a guy like every other running back the Ravens have had since basically Mark Ingram, who is decent, but not a game changer? That's going to be the question for the Ravens to determine if they have what it takes to win the AFC and potentially the Super Bowl. At number 2, we have the Super Bowl runner-ups, the San Francisco 49ers. And if you saw my video earlier this week, I did say this was my Super Bowl favorite, but it's pretty hard to put this team any higher than 2, given what the remaining team has done in recent years. Either way, the 49ers are one of the most complete teams in the NFL. Really, the only question that is to be had for the 49ers is, can Brock Purdy get it done as the starting quarterback? Yes, there's some people who still don't believe in Purdy, still think he's just a game manager, and he's only good because of the Kyle Shanahan offense and his weapons in Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, and Brandon Ayuk. And yes, that is an absolute treasure trove of targets and people on offense to get the ball to. But that doesn't mean that every quarterback in the NFL would be effective with those options. I'm not saying that Brock Purdy is at the same level as Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, etc., etc., etc. But what I am saying is that Brock Purdy is a more than startable NFL quarterback. He is probably a top half NFL quarterback, and that is good enough to lead a team as good as the 49ers to a Super Bowl championship. This team has an insane set of offensive skill position players. They just re-upped Trent Williams to get him out of his holdout and still have some decent offensive line guys, though I will acknowledge this is one of their weaker positions. They still have one of the most stacked defenses in the league with guys like Nick Bosa, Hufanga, etc., etc. It's just everyone on that defense is a stud. And so it's tough to believe that this team can't compete if you even have a decent quarterback under center. And I believe they do, which is how they've been so effective since Purdy took over as the starting quarterback for this team. And so they absolutely belong here at number 2 and are still my Super Bowl favorites for the 2024 season. And our final team on this list is no surprise. It is the Kansas City Chiefs, led by Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. This team has won the last 2 Super Bowls. They are favored to win a 3rd straight Super Bowl. Mahomes has already won 3 Super Bowls and been to 4 in 6 years. Already said he hasn't lost prior to overtime of the AFC Championship game. This team belongs nowhere but number 1. Now, all that being said, they may be slow during the regular season, much like they were in 2023. But if we learned anything from last season, it's that you just cannot write off the Kansas City Chiefs until they lose in the playoffs. If this team makes the playoffs, they can turn it on. They can be that team immediately, and my God, are they scary. Now, the big loss for this team is definitely L'Jarius Sneed on the back end. They were able to re-sign Chris Jones, which is massive for the defense that was much improved in 2023, But L'Jarius Sneed was the number one corner on this team in a much improved defense in 2023 that really carried the team throughout the entirety of the regular season. And so it's a big question, will this team's defense be as effective as they were in 2023? And if they're not, how does this team perform in the regular season if guys like Travis Kelce are on snap counts, which I expect them to be given the fact that he'll be turning 35 years old in 2024. Yes, the Chiefs still do have a number of question marks around them. They're not a guaranteed, locked and loaded best team in the league far and away, but I think they are still the best team coming into the season, and so they're number one. And so that's it for our power rankings coming into the NFL season, but because our picks don't come out until Saturday, we still do have a couple of picks to do before that because we have a Thursday and Friday game. And so we're going to start with the Ravens and the Chiefs. As I previously said, this is my number 3 and number 1 team in terms of power rankings, the two best teams in the AFC as far as I'm concerned, and so this should be an absolutely amazing game. The argument for the Chiefs is the fact that Andy Reid, off a bye week, is one of the most dominant head coaches in history, and the offseason is the ultimate bye week. And the only game the Chiefs have ever lost in the Patrick Mahomes era that's a season opener was last year to the Detroit Lions by 1 point. And in that game, the Chiefs were missing Travis Kelce and Chris Jones, two of their best 3 players on the team, at least in 2023. And so only losing by 1, missing all those guys, and the fact that Kadarius Toney dropped about 5 balls in that game when they still thought he was going to be one of their wide receivers is the only reason the Lions won that game. Because the Chiefs on opening weeks are really good. Comparatively, the argument for the Ravens is that they're going to want revenge. Oh, this team is going to be hungry. They lost to them in the conference championship last year. The Ravens want to show everyone in the league that they can compete for a Super Bowl. And this is how they show everyone that they are not to be trifled with. Winning this game in Kansas City. And so who do I have? I got the Baltimore Ravens winning this one. I think the revenge is going to be enough to put the Ravens over the edge and win this game. And this has kind of been a bit of the MO for the Chiefs. While the Chiefs have always won those really good, really tight games in the playoffs, they've tended to lose to teams like the Bills and like the Bengals in regular season matchups. And so I absolutely think that a team like the Ravens, who I think is in a similar company to the Bills and Bengals in recent years, can beat the Chiefs in the regular season because that just seems to be what happens. And so that's why I'm taking the Ravens in what should be a fantastic opening game, much like how last year's week 1 with the Chiefs and Lions was also just impeccable. And then as well, this year we have a Friday week opener in Brazil, which is, I didn't even realize this game was this early until a couple of days ago. But hey, we got a Friday game, Packers-Eagles, an absolutely epic NFC showdown between two teams that I think are going to be very competitive in the NFC playoff picture. The NFL really went all out this year on making sure that the week 1 slate of games was just wow, knock you in the face. The big question for the Philadelphia Eagles is, have they done enough this offseason, both in terms of their coordinators, their secondary, as well as their culture, in order to turn this team around? The Eagles in 2022 were one of the best teams in the league, and in 2023, they started out as one of the best teams in the league before just having all the wheels fall off and being pathetic in the second half and being destroyed in the first round of the playoffs by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a team that only made the playoffs because they were in the putrid NFC South. Now, the common perception is that the improvement in coordinators, along with the improved secondary, will make this team better. But I'm not as convinced as others because I still think the culture is a big issue with the Eagles, and they did lose Jason Kelce, who was the guy who called all of the blocking schemes on offense. Maybe Jalen Hurts can do that effectively, but if he can't, that offensive line might not be as good as it's been in past years. And if the offensive line isn't as good, and if the improvements to the secondary don't help this defense that was really bad against the pass in the second half of last year improve, the Eagles might be in for a rough time. Comparatively for the Packers, as I've said before, are a complete team. They seem to have a lot of guys going for them, and the Packers pretty easily dusted the Cowboys in the playoffs last year. A Cowboys team that in 2023 I thought was better than the Eagles were that year, even before the Eagles fell apart towards the second half of the season. And so, based on what I've said, you can probably guess it. I got the Packers winning this game. Now, that doesn't mean I don't think the Eagles can be a good team. I actually do have the Eagles winning this division. I think they will figure it out, but I think it's going to take some time. And even though this is technically a home game for the Eagles, given the fact that it's in Brazil, I don't think either team is going to have any kind of home field advantage. And I think the Packers are just a better team, a younger team. They have a better culture and will be able to pull off this game in week 1. And for the rest of the picks, you will see all of them on Saturday when they get posted here prior to the Sunday and Monday slate of games for week 1. All I can say is I am so excited that the NFL season is finally back. Either way, I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, leave a like and comment down below. Help us out, help us grow. I'll see you all next time. Peace!